Happy Monday. Welcome to Power Talk. I am your host, Jean Adrienne. And we're going to have a great show today because this is like deja vu. My guest today is Jamie Lerner. Jamie is the co-author of the book, The Ever-Loving Essence of You. And Jamie and I were on internet TV before internet TV was a thing. Gosh, I think it was 7 years ago, Jamie, that we started this?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. We were on a show called Living Consciously that was a local show in Denver as well as being on the internet. And we had a blast. There were 6 of us that would take turns being co-hosting it and talking about absolute areas of consciousness that are important for all of us. So we're going to do that again today. If you want to know more about Jamie, her website is www.jamie-lerner.com, JAMIE-LERNER.com. And what we're going to focus on today is going to be allowing. You know, Jamie, allowing is so important, and I don't think we think about it enough. There's several aspects to it. Allowing ourselves to receive from the universe and allowing other people to just be who they are. So kind of share your thoughts about how important allowing is so that our viewers can really kind of tap into this and maybe change their lives.
I think allowing is a practice, not just a concept. And I believe that it's something that we need to reclaim. Because it really allows us to move about the world in such a loving and unconditional way. And the thing about allowing is that when we begin to determine what is best for ourselves, then we are so much more able to allow others to determine what is best for themselves. So it's really a win-win for everybody. But the practice of allowing is very counterintuitive. Because we are really living in a society that asks us continually to make others wrong in order for us to feel that we are right.
You know, and I think so many of us come in to our lives feeling responsible for everybody else. You know, it's like, we think we know what's best for everybody we come into contact with, but it couldn't be further from the truth because each of us is on our own little unique path, and be whatever the path is as it may, it's the right path for each of us.
That I believe that 100%. However, I think it's complicated because people are not really interested in stepping into their own personal power and taking responsibility for thinking about their own lives. And so it's much easier to look outside of ourselves and have a point of view about somebody else. And then we get to avoid that whole process, which, you know, I think that that's fine. The important piece of it is that if we could then at least acknowledge that we're doing it when we're doing it, then that is also taking personal responsibility. So we could say, I am choosing not to address myself, not to make decisions for myself, not to take personal responsibility, and instead I am going to take all of my energy and I am going to have a point of view about everyone else. And I think that's a great option as well. So,
yeah, you know, if you're conscious enough to do that, because most of us do this judging thing completely unconsciously. It, like you said, it's a pattern, it's a habit that we started off when we were children, probably.
Yes, I think that's true. The other piece of this is that when we are in that place of judging either ourselves or another, I believe we are disconnected from ourselves. And so it is only when we are connected from ourselves that we ask our ego to step aside and that we're in this place of unconditional love for self and others. So moments of connection, moments of disconnection, once again, I don't think it's where we are, but it is helpful to know where we are when we're there. What we do about it, that's a whole other conversation. So,
you know, I live kind of, I got a new sort of way of looking at life and putting things in perspective from a woman by the name of Beth Moore. She does a series of Bible study things, and I was doing one of her Bible studies, and she talked about 5 redefining questions in there, and one of them is, where are you? You know, and half the time I don't think we really know.
Well, I think that when we can be in our now, in the moment, that is, that's a great place to be. But it's sometimes it's difficult to get back there. So
yeah, for sure. Especially if you've spent most of your life not there. You know, I mean, I kind of grew up in a crazy family, and I learned very early on to completely disassociate. And so I spent probably 50 years out of my body, you know, floating around in the ethers and living in happy places that were good for me. And I got into that judging thing because I wasn't present.
Well, you know, I think the good part about what you just said is that when we can allow ourselves to be in quote unquote a happy place and kind of just float around and create an existence for ourselves that doesn't have anything to do with maybe our family of origin or other things going on in society, that's a great place. But as soon as you know that you're doing that and judging, that's where the disconnect comes in. So,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's been, I want to think how long ago this thing happened. Probably it was before the year 2000. And I had a guy that I was dating tell me that I was the most negative person he had ever met. And I'm thinking to myself, how can this be? You know, I'm happy all the time. I love everybody. I love life. And it wasn't, you know, until maybe the last 10 years that I actually remembered him saying that to me. And I actually realized where that was coming from and why he thought that. And it was because I was constantly finding fault with everyone and everything.
And that is only moments of disconnection. And that's all it is. And so when we just see moments of contrast, which is everything that we are not wanting, it gives us clarity. So how can we observe ourselves in a loving and very curious way without judging ourselves? And that's where the whole concept begins. We can embrace ourselves with loving curiosity, kind of step back, watch what's going on, laugh about 90% of it, because sometimes, you know, just even the mind chatter and the commentary that we have about ourselves, it is like so funny, and 90% of it is not even true.
Right.
And I think that's a great place to start the practice of allowing. So.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the second question in that Beth Moore series that I took away as far as redefinition was concerned is, who told you that?
Right.
You know, because we tend to think that our essence is what everybody else told us we were and not who we really are inside. And, you know, and that really takes some excavation, I think, to find.
Yes, but don't spend too much time looking back, because that has nothing to do with where we're going and moving forward. And, you know, that's kind of why I shifted my practice very early on, is when I was doing psychotherapy. We were always asking people to look back, but it wasn't serving them in order to move forward. So, you know, I tell people, like, the only time to look back is if you're going to look at something that felt really, really good, or look back at something that didn't feel good, but just for a few moments, and clean up the vibrational residue and then move forward, because, you know, what do you want right now?
Yeah, because that past really doesn't exist anymore. It did in that split second that we did whatever we did, but, you know, it's a complete waste of our energy to be hung back there. And so many people are, you know.
Yes, it becomes the excuse why we are not moving to a place that, you know, actually we don't even know what we want, because you ask people all day long what they want, they'll tell you all day long what they do not want.
Yes. It's crazy how that happened. You know, and one of the things I guess that I've learned, you know, you approach your practice from a more traditional standpoint. And, I'm out there in the woo-woo and all about the energy. But what I have found is that as soon as we make a judgment or get attached to an outcome for somebody else, our energy gets completely entangled with theirs. And sometimes we actually even start running their karma and their spiritual lessons, which is not our job. Number one, and miserable feeling. Number two, because it doesn't feel right when you do that.
Well, and who are we to say what another should or should not be doing? That's so ego-based. So, in that moment, I think that's a great time to just throw yourself on the floor in fits of laughter, because how would we know what's best for someone else? No, we would not.
No, we wouldn't have a clue.
No.
Yeah. And it's very conceited, like you said, because the ego is all in the middle of that. So do you have some tools that our viewers might take away from the show that would help them to realize, A, when they're not present, and B, when they are judging other people?
I think that when we are in moments of disconnection, we're not feeling well and we're not feeling good. And sometimes it's difficult because people have practiced themselves into not feeling good most of the time. So they can't really decipher feeling good from not feeling good.
Right.
They're kind of wired to not feel good. However, I think that when we are able to quiet our mind chatter and even isolate some of the self-talk that, some of that, and we are constantly, talking to ourselves in ways that probably would not even speak to another person. So quieting the mind is a really scary thing to do sometimes, and it's also a really lovely thing to do for ourselves. And when we can begin to isolate, kind of sound bites of that conversation, I think we have to laugh at it. Mm-hmm. I think the real breakthrough is laughter, because, it's really funny. It's really funny. And we're not really laughing at ourselves. We're laughing with ourselves, about ourselves. And it's a lovely thing to do. It's not a judgmental thing to do. Yes. So I encourage people to catch themselves and laugh about it, and catch themselves and laugh about it. And pretty soon you'll be laughing all day long.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some famous author back in the day that wrote a book called Laughter is the Best Medicine. I don't remember who that was. Bernie Siegel, maybe?
I don't know. But I think that it's so dead on. It really is. So.
Well, it shifts your energy. There's another one that I also tend to use for myself, and that's gratitude. Because you can't be out of your body and in a judgmental place if you're in gratitude. And so sometimes, if I'm kind of down in the pit, wallowing around in there and not even able to laugh, if I can find just one or two things to be grateful for, it immediately shifts my energy and might even shift it to a place that would move me from depression into the ability to laugh.
So I do agree with you. However, I choose to use the word appreciation because gratitude triggers guilt for people. And I think the word appreciation doesn't have that feeling attached to it. Appreciation is just more open and loving, but gratitude, especially for a lot of people, all of a sudden then they feel guilty that they're not being appreciative.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, wait a minute. The whole idea is to feel good. So maybe shift from gratitude to appreciation. And then
sure, I like that. Yeah. I actually hadn't really thought about that word as part of the gratitude process until last week. I started taking a class on Zentangle. I think I'm probably the last person in the world to mess with Zentangle because people have been doing it for a while, but they offered a class here in Tallahassee, and I signed up for it because I thought, well, that would be fun. And the very first step that you do before you actually start doing your little doodling is you sit there and you appreciate. You appreciate the paper. You appreciate the pen. You appreciate the possibilities of what might flow. Mm-hmm. And it pulled me completely present in my body so that I was able to do the work. And before I knew it, the 2-hour class was over.
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're right about that, because appreciation really steeps us in our senses, and that's a nice place to be. We can engage our mind and our eyes and our ears and our nose and, really connect ourselves to our body.
Right, exactly. So, do you have any other tools that you might want to share as far as helping people to move into that place of appreciation or that stillness place?
I think that if you're in nature, even if you're in nature for 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, when you are in nature, it automatically connects you to a place of godliness or appreciation. So, that's a really easy thing to do. Get outside, take a walk, There's some amazing new research coming out about people just walking into the forest, and as a result of just being amongst trees, that, their senses are just absolutely transformed, and they go from a place of depression to just feeling so good. So pet your dog, pet your cat, have contact with an animal. That's another way that really helps us connect us to ourselves. So just small things that I think don't understand every day are accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And free. Walking outside, that's free.
That's right.
Maybe if you don't have a pet, that might not be free, but you can always go to the dog park and pet somebody else's pet.
Yes, this is true. Or an animal shelter, or go into a grocery store, and now these the aisles are have beautiful produce, and they're being misted, and there's thunder in the background, and the flowers, and go into the bakery section and smell there's a zillion ways for us to transport ourselves from where we are to a place of feeling better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, there's another aspect to allowing that I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about that. And that is accepting everything that happens because it just is. We don't necessarily always allow ourselves to move the emotions through. We get stuck on it. And we go, and that's one of the things I think that triggers most of us into going into judgment is if something happens and we don't agree with it or we don't like what it was, we'll tend to hang on to it and just not do that meditative state of, oh, well, look at this. And I'm just going to let it float on by because that happened a moment ago and that moment doesn't exist anymore.
Right. I think that's so true. And I think the key to that is to mind your own business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just kind of mind our own business. I think we would feel so much better and do so much better.
It takes a lot of energy to run somebody else's life, and that's we should be using to run our own life and to stay connected in with our true essence of, who we really are.
Yes. No, I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I think, a lot of my clients come to me because they don't have a clue who they are and they don't know how to figure it out.
I think that we all know who we are and we've just forgotten. And I think when we give people permission to tap into our own inner knowing and our inner being and to begin to trust ourselves, sometimes that's just enough. However, I don't think that people get that permission from a lot of places out there, even the self-help world, that really underscores, first of all, that we need help, which we don't.
Right.
And second of all, it's someone else that's going to tell us how to do it. Yeah. So how can we reconnect with ourselves and begin to navigate from the inside out? And I think that there is a lot of power in that, in seeing someone in their most powerful place of being. And I think that's where we as helpers can assist people in assisting themselves.
Exactly. Because a lot of times you need somebody outside yourself to guide you back in.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's why I think you and I are always going to have a job.
Yes, but the true success is when people are no longer reaching out for us, and that's ultimately what we want. People say your business model is not very good, Jamie, and I say, well, you know what? I'm in the business of wellness, and it's true because when people are well, They need themselves, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Yes. Yeah, many years ago, when I started doing this work, I set an intention for myself that I would work with a person one time, and that based on that one interaction, they would gather enough tools to be able to move forward in their life in joy. And that's not to say that I don't have repeat clients, because I do, but I certainly don't sell packages of sessions, because I'm not going to judge somebody to be that broken that they would need to see me 5 times, you know?
That's good. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. I just tell people, you'll hear that little inner voice somewhere down the road, and it'll say, call Jean, and then we'll have another one of these chats,
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been lovely. It's so great to reconnect with you, Jamie. And viewers and listeners, her website is jamie-lerner.com. So you might want to go check out her work and let her assist you in laughing at your foibles and finding who you really are. Because life's a lot more fun that way. So thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. And viewers, next week, my guest is going to be Barbara Handclough. Barbara has been writing books about spiritual and metaphysical topics for seemingly a million years, but probably 20 or so. And they've always been nonfiction. But in the last few years, she has written a trilogy that's a fiction trilogy which addresses some major spiritual concepts. And it's a page turner. She's finished the first 2 of the trilogy, and so next week I'm going to talk to her about those and some of the concepts that you can get out of her Revelations for the Aquarian Age and Revelations from the Ruby Crystal. So until then, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. Ciao.